This is going to be the beginning. This is the beginning of me going through the book chapters again. Now, like the reason why I'm doing this, and I kind of had this in the sort of like the channel update video, but in case you didn't watch that, uh, what what my plan is to basically go back through this, but in the process create a template for platform games. This template is probably going to be based upon the jungle slash pitfall game that I was creating. So in a way, I'm like rebuilding that, but also making sure that I'm practicing these patterns correctly. I had tried to do it from essentially memory, not really referencing them, and I think I ran into some problems. Forgot some of these patterns and like how they're supposed to work and what's going on. So that's what we're doing today. And if you're curious about uh, where we left off yesterday with the Raspberry Pi, I got like 900 of those circles drawing to the screen at the same time. So I'm thinking that either while I was doing something wrong previously that hopefully in this template we can fix, or I've got just reducing the resolution and having only circles is like simple shapes is a huge difference. Um, after each sort of like implementation, I'm of course going to try it out on a Raspberry Pi as soon as I got something that can show off, and perhaps that would be a good thing for today because we want to implement commands. This first chapter is actually in the introduction of the book. And of course, I'm not going to rush it. I don't want to try to get it so it's always working one chapter per day. I want to take my time with this and do it right, also, or at least as right as I know how to do. So, what does this mean to me? Let's go ahead and put my VS Code. I don't need two of you. All right, here we go. We're in our game template platform. Let's go ahead and connect Twitch line highlighter. So I reread the command pattern right before stream, which didn't help with my time because I was got kind of into that instead of actually preparing for the stream. And I think the big thing that I forgot was it's not that we just pass in commands as like an enum, but the commands can be remapped, but also the commands are separated from the thing that they're trying to do. So, for example, we have an actor, and we pass the actor into the command system, and uh, that causes the thing to happen. Um, so, for example, if we press like jump, we pass the actor in to the command. Like we get the command um, out. So if we take a look closer at this, we have a command. So we create like a struct command, and actually this would be a trait command. Then we have like jump command, which would then call um, execute off of this. We could then execute off of jump command, which would then do the jump thing. So that's one option. The other option is to then make it. Oh, and I think this is how we can do controllers. So we handle input, and then those ones just tell each of these commands to do that. So we separate handle input from command. But I suppose more importantly, yes, this allows us to now remap keys, which I think is going to be important. We also want to be able to hand in an actor for some specific command. So if it's the jump command, then execute takes in the actor and tells that actor to jump. So that might be really interesting. And I wonder if we want to do something for all of the possible commands we can do. For example, if we're starting at the start screen and I press start on the controller, I want to move to the next screen. And then I want that to happen with keyboard and with controller. Like I want all those things to work. So if I do something like that, then it's not just the actor that gets passed in. For start, that would be essentially the game or like the scene. So it wouldn't take in the game actor. So then I'm not sure I would want to use a trait for this. So it gets a little bit interesting, like not exactly sure how to handle that yet. So I might just do commands for the actors to begin with. And of course we're gonna have to have this handle input too. And handle input takes in commands, or it manages the commands. So I'm thinking right now, let's like actually create some kind of player, and we'll put them into the arena. Now that part might have to be rewritten in later, like as I remember how to do the game objects. But until then, let's get into here. Let's create ourselves a player that can jump. Okay. So right now we're creating just a bunch of circles. I think we want to change. We could leave this as a circle, and I'm just gonna have the circle jump up and down. So we have our circles. I mean, I think that this is fine. I have to like handle game objects in this way in the future. I'm pretty sure that's part of things. I don't know if we want to like have actors like stored outside of this. Although it might make it easier for doing updates and like actually just grabbing the actor, as it were. And that's a good question. Maybe I should. Maybe we should just try this. We can have this be the actor, or the player is a game object. Now if we want a like the player mesh, just a mesh. And then we have this gravity. Now I wonder if the draw system should store the mesh. That might be good for us to do. So that way we just store the player, and which is a game object. We have a gravity, so it falls down. So we're going to name you player. Oh no, that's okay, I don't actually need to store you at all. We'll deal with you again later. So I want to create this game object. Oh, right, because we weren't creating the game object at that point in time. So if I do this, we're going to need the draw system. How are we handling that right now? Game object. We have the location and velocity. We don't have a draw system that's being added in here. We're just drawing you out. I think now might also be, is now the right time for us to start like doing tests too? Because I do want to like have tests for this template, especially if I'm going to be using it to actually create games, which I kind of want to. I want to like make at least one side scroll. So this is going to be a 2D platformer game that's going to be made with this template. And then if I go to make more of these, I can improve the template and then just make another game from it. All right, so let's create a. If I do test-driven development for this, I guess not fully test-driven. It may help me like decide what the builder pattern should be, so that way, for example, this player game object, like when we set up and initialize, we have the main actor, and I'm not sure if I want. I think for right now we're just going to do this as single player. And this probably can be the game object. So what would that look like? Just do game objects. You can be a vec game object. So we can start you off with an empty vector here. And of course we have gravity also. So if I start with a and with a test, this is probably not going to be a CI. Okay, so this is where we start running into, okay, how do I pass in a context if I'm going to create like a game state and test this new function? That means we're going to have to, either I want to create this context later using some kind of builder pattern that allows me to then initialize the create the player and do all those things, and that might be good to like then have it be separated. That could be interesting. Let's start with, we have our game objects and we have our gravity in here. And if I do this, I definitely don't need context in here. Oh, we're just going to return these two things: the empty game objects and gravity set to some number. So CI test, create game. What is this going to be? Game state. All right, so we're going to do let state equals state new. Right now, this returns a result. But I'm not sure it needs to. This could probably just return a self. So that gives me this game state here. We can do some asserts that the game state, game objects, has a length of 0 right now. And then also we can assert that gravity is set to some number that we care about. Is 1.0. If we do that, we're going to have to add in that. Oh, you're not going to care? Oh, because I have 17 errors. That's why. Oh, because I was looking for like circles and all that fun stuff. So let's take these out. I don't think we're not going to need all this stuff in update where we're like doing the weird ticks and like adding them. That was a interesting experiment, but not necessary. so what are you upset about? We have self, game objects, gravity, you're fine. Oh, you don't need a return, okay. Okay, now you're just yelling at me because you were not implementing that. All right, so then here, we want to allow Clippy float compare. Okay, there we go. 11 errors still. Oh, the rest of them are going to be in main. Because these now, so game state, this is going to be game state new. We don't have to pass in a context. We don't have to question mark this. And that gives me a full game state. So that should make it happier. We get these weird like macro errors, which we get every once in a while. Which makes me think that we should just cargo run to test. And we should still get a window pop up. Okay, perfect, we do. And cargo test. And we're still able to test this. All right, so if I want to create a game actor, essentially, the player, and then I want to throw them into the game and have them jumpable. So that means we're gonna want to handle the input. Let's I guess we'll create our game player, our game object. Which means we're gonna need to store the type inside of here. And I'm actually really curious. For the game object type, I wonder if is it type object? Or is it update method? So yeah, we'd have like an entity. Oh, interesting. Okay, so we have like a struct entity. So it's not all game objects, right? And then we tell, okay, so we have a world, and then all of the entities go in the world. And then that's where they get delegated to have like a draw system. Because I think that where did we learn that? That was that flyweight? I don't think so, because that's where we did the trees. But it looks like we could outside of here have a world class. And that way we don't have to do everything inside of here. We can just store the world in here, which I've seen like the specs for ECS. That's kind of like the same thing where I have, oh, here's the world and everything goes in that world when I create that. So maybe we should create a world. .rs. So what would that end up looking like? If we do testing here. I don't know if I need to like specifically test the full world, or if I need to like just test the methods on it. Let's try just testing the methods. So we're gonna have a pub struct world, and so looking at this, like our world has entities in it. And was object pool what we used? What we looked at for that? Oh, that was for like things like particles. Never mind. Okay, yeah. For optimization, we use like this spatial partition for a grid, which is probably gonna hold our game object. Okay, so if we switch you to like entity, and in the world we're gonna have entities. So, and you would be a vector of entity. Now I'm gonna rename you. Entity, you become entity everywhere. I might want to even, I could even just rewrite this too. Because I think a bunch of these we want to sort of like change around from like hit walls inside of here to like the physics system I think is in charge of colliding with things. That actually makes a lot of sense. Because like we're gonna have our entities. Game objects. Okay, so then game state, you're not gonna hold this. What you're gonna hold is a world, which holds a world. Should probably pull you in. Gravity would then go into the world. So we don't need to store that there. So when we're creating our main game state, all we care about is that you then have a world inside of you. So yeah, I'm not exactly sure how I want to do testing in this. Okay, so we have new, we have here, we have world, and we're gonna have to create a new world. Let's do this up here. So that world equals world new. And there we go. We have a new world. Let's go implement that. All right, so we know we want entities, so we can have like a single entity off of here. Which means we need to pull this in. We're not going to return anything. We're just going to return self. And okay, so this is where we're going to have outside can then we initialize world and we can add the player inside. Okay, I think that works. So self entities equals empty vector entities like that. Okay, so now if I want to create essentially a player, and even if we want that player to just be like a circle that drops down and just hits the bottom of the floor and allows us to do some of these commands and move around, we instantiate this world, and then I want the main library to create a player, which is going to be an entity, and add that entity into the world. Okay. So that's going to look like create player, then add player to world. Then in here, we want to update world, which will then update player. We want to draw the world, which will also draw the player. So what are you yelling about? You're yelling, oh, we should consider adding a default implementation for a game state, because I'm not doing anything weird and crazy for this. I mean, I could see that. So instead of pub function new, we can implement default for game state. And then this is default. And then you're just yelling at me because it's not being read ever yet. Arctic Space Fox, hello. What are my thoughts on Bevy? I liked Bevy when I tried it just a little bit. I think it's still a little bit early yet to like go in full, like, you know, actually like rely upon it for making a full game. Like there's some features that like every time, like when I went in and tried it, I was like, oh, I got some stuff on a screen, but it's changing so much right now that yeah, it's changing so much right now that I was like, I think we would want to wait until it like solidifies a little bit more before we try making anything like big and real in it. Oh no, what happened? Nightbot, come on, Nightbot. Hold on, I lost my tab for Nightbot too. Have to open that up, log in again. All right. Oh, you sent a link to Google Drive. I don't think I want to allow that. Do you have a link to like a GitHub for it? No, you can push it. Yeah, if you have like a GitHub, like yeah, I guess I'd be too concerned going to like a Google Drive to just download stuff. I don't think that would create the best precedent. But cool. Okay, let's take a look. What are we doing? Where are we going? Right. Okay, so we want to create this player. We want to add the player to the world. And that sort of lends us into, in this world, how we want to sort of set this up. I suppose we can do the same thing here. We can implement default for world, which will give us, oh, also main instead of this is now default. Gives us our default game state. Hello, Lord Mist. How are you doing today? Failed at the hand holding. It's or hand raising. It's the morning, so totally understandable. I mean, even if it's not morning for you, it's morning for me, so you can use that excuse. All right. What were we doing here? We have our entities. I want to be able to add an entity in here. So I guess what that would look like, and I think we can do this as, I think we could also implement, just get used to implementing default for. Because I don't know if I can derive that. Can it figure that out? It might be able to. Derive default. Then I don't even need you. So if I derive default, I think that just creates an empty vector in there. So then I should be able to do, I want to update my Rust snippets for test section. I don't want to actually have these tests in here. So we do test section, and then do test. Okay, so CI. I don't think I need to test like the creation of the world. That's already going to be tested by our the type system and just Rust itself. But if we want to test the logic of like registering or adding a like an entity to the world, this could be CI test add entity to world. So world equals, you're gonna have to be mutable. Default. That should give us an empty array in there. Then you can derive default if all fields implement default too. Oh, that is nice. I guess that makes a lot of sense. And like I'm still used to like getting used to the idea of like implementing default. But like having Clippy yell at me a lot is helping me out. Ooh, okay, so you have snake bevy here. Come on, open up. Snake bevy. It's good old standard. Oh, we got your snake image. So you say this is slow for you? It's interesting looking. I do remember like the ECS system in Bevy is interesting. It's not exactly what I was used to, but it's standard. It's pretty standard ECS too. Let's clone this down. I'll need you to clone you. Let's see. Documents, code, other. Okay. I'll just use HTTPS. bevy cargo run. Let's just build this in the background. That will probably take a little while. All right, so for creating a world, I want to register an entity. So I suppose I want to assert equal that world dot entities dot length is 0. And then I want to create the entity. So let entity equals I suppose for this we could create an entity with the default, like a default entity. And then I want to add that to the world. So world dot add entity. Pass in the entity. It'll take ownership of that. Then I would expect that this entities is then 1. I'm not sure necessarily how I want to like test that it is in there before just okay, so we'll do world dot entities length is 1 now. All right, so entity, you need to implement default. So what does that mean for us? We're gonna have a location and we're gonna have a velocity in here. Not all things should probably have a velocity. So we have a location. I wonder if point 2 implements default. Yeah, okay. So it doesn't implement default. So we'll have to manually implement that. So I think we're going to be just updating. We'll be rewriting that anyways. So for default, we're going to return location equals, so 0.2, x is 0.0, y is 0.0. Return self as location, and that's it. Trigagalis. I pronounced your name before all right, but for some reason today I'm getting all like that. I guess I've used up all my energy already, and now my tea is not catching up. Let's see. What are we doing? I'm making a new it's I guess like the secret part of it is I'm rebuilding the jungle game, but I'm doing it as a template for a platformer, so then I can base other games off of it too. And I'm going back in and re-implementing the lessons that I've learned from the game programming patterns book, because I realized that I was doing it from memory, but I was doing it wrong, like really wrong, and that's why I was slow down so much the farther we got into jungle. So I need to take a step back, reinforce my learning by re-implementing all these data structures and being very methodical about that, and that will increase my skills and speed over the long term. All right, so you like Bevy? Bevy is nice. I'm waiting for it to be a little bit more finished. Talking about Bevy, this is ready. Let's cargo run this. So here's our snake. Interesting. It doesn't always take my commands. So when I hit up, I was hitting right. So yeah, I guess like I need to probably hit the command at exactly the right time for it to be listening for the command. Um, Otherwise it's not gonna hit. But it looks nice. I like it. Oh, I can use WAS too. I need to switch over to this. All right. I was thinking maybe that would like recognize a little bit more. But yeah, this is really nice. I like it. It's got a good aesthetic. Even though it's just like little boxes, it's very like I like the look of it. I think just getting that uh getting the controls really like smooth so that they always work would like help out a lot. It's kind of frustrating when I hit like the right button and it doesn't move right. I'm like right, and then it crashes. But yeah, having like the two different commands where I can use the arrow keys and the WASD is really nice. All right, back to you. So we've created a default for this entity. So if you come back to world here, we can see, okay, now we need add entity. So we have a pub struct world. We're not going to implement world. We're going to have a pub function, add entity. This is going to take an entity. So we should just take ownership of that. And we're not going to return anything. We're just going to do self dot entities and entities. Oh, and you need to be, can't forget that, mute self. So that way I can do self dot entities dot push entity. So Bevy said that you should put things like input in a separate loop and that will record the input every update. But if the event is in that time where it doesn't listen, it will be ignored. So I don't know how Bevy works, but I was watching a GDC talk about networking code, and one of the things that that the speaker was suggesting was if you use a timeline and you register commands for future ticks. So let's say we're on like tick 1, you get the command for like moving right, and that registers to run at tick 7. So yes, it's not going to be like instantaneous, and there's always going to be a little bit of a lag, but that would make it so you can have it in its own thread, and it hopefully shouldn't be that far behind, like, or it should never get ahead of like where it would run. And then that way, if you do get behind, you can just drop all the commands that are for in the past, or you can just loop through all the commands that are going to run and say, oh yeah, we need to run them really quickly, like all right now. So that's an option that can be done. I haven't like implemented that. Maybe we'll try something like this here. For multiplayer though, I think that's really important because there's this lag and you want to account for that lag. And if you account for the lag in single player, then it doesn't feel like you're having lag, or the game doesn't feel different in multiplayer either. All right. So we push on our entity. This should all be happy now. Run these tests, or we can't. Where was that? Oh, in the main library, we are calling world new, and we should call world default. Okay, so our tests are passing now. Now, if I want to create a player entity and draw that to the screen, So we can have a default entity, which is going to have a location of 0.0. So I'm probably going to want to update the location. I could basically use the builder pattern for this, start with default, which gives me a location of like 0, 0, and then I can update that if I really care about it. So we can have a test section and a test. So CI test set location. So that mute this can be an entity equals entity default. We're going to assert equal that entity dot location. I wonder if the mint point implements partial equal or just equal. We'll find out. So this will be a 0.2 new. Oh, there is no new. So it's 0.2, x is 0.0, y is 0.0, and like that. So you should be happy. And you pass. Then I want to update the location. So we're going to say entity.set location, and we're going to pass it in a new x and a y. So if I do something like 1.0 and 2.0, then I want to assert equal entity.location is now a 0.2 with x is 1.0 and y is 2.0. You should be upset because we don't have set location. So implement entity. Okay, set location, self, x, which is F32, and y, which is F32. No return. We're just going to say self.location.x is x. Y is equal to y. Okay. So if I do this now, this test should still work. It does. Okay. So basically now we can set the location of where we want this to be. So we're going to create our player. So that player is going to be equal to entity default dot set location. And let's just set this to like 50.0, 50.0. All right. Well, I guess we can't really do this. That doesn't. So I probably want to return self off of this. So then I want to essentially do entity equals entity.set location. You're going to return self. So we're going to take an ownership of self here and then return self. Oh, and you have to be immutable self. Okay. You're happy. Then in our main library. Okay, so now we have our player. We've set the location of this player. We want to add the player to the world, so the world needs to be mutable. world dot add entity, add in the player. That's that. And then we store the world in here. Okay, perfect. Now, if we want to update the world, we don't really have anything to update right now. I suppose we can have gravity and have it fall down, but it's kind of useless until we can draw it out to the screen, so we can actually see what's happening. So what would that end up looking like? The entity needs to have a draw system added in. Not everything necessarily needs to have the draw system, and for testing purposes, it's probably easier to have that be an option with a none. Okay, so if we do something like draw system, turn option, and then this is where we can do like the entire box draw system. And then that's the big question is, do I want to do the traits? I think I want to do the traits. So this will be a box dyn draw system. All right, which means we need to create this so we can add that in. And I wonder, does option implement default? Oh no, we have to add that here ourselves. So do system equals a none, and we'll add that in. Okay, so all we have to do now is add in a draw system. Let's go ahead and create a new folder for this. System. So there we'll have a mod.rs. Mod draw system from that. Still unhappy that we don't have something. Okay, so we're going to do a hub trait draw system. And if I don't do anything else right now, we'll be able to come back to here and import this. And then you're happy. All right, so if I want to create a draw system, we're going to have to create a public, like a player draw system. Give me a player draw system, .rs. So we can have a pub. I guess before we even do that, we want to come back here and pub mod this. Okay, so in here, this is where we're going to store the mesh. We're going to have our mesh for the player, and this is going to be a type mesh. We'll have a default for this, which we're going to have to implement that ourselves. There's no way around it. So implement default for player draw system. Do let mesh equals, and we'll be able to update this to store an image instead of the player for us later. So this is going to be a mesh builder, new. We can have this be a circle. All right, so we need a draw mode. Fill a point, which I think is just a it's going to be the location of where this is. So we know we want this just to always be in the center. So you're going to be a 0.2. So x is 0, y is 0. Our radius. So some kind of size for this. If I make this like 10 by default, tolerance 0.1, color, we can make this white, but it's probably nicer to make it some specific color. New, I don't know, random 0.4, 0.5, 0.2, 0. Okay, then we build handed into context, which we don't have, and then we're going to store that as part of as the player mesh. Okay, so let's say, which means in this one we probably don't want to return self. We want to return a game result, self inside. We know we need. Oh, can we? We can't do this, can we? Because we can't take in. So we have to implement new. So this is going to be just implement. So we can't do a default. This is going to have to be new. So we can take in a context. Or we don't store the mesh in here. And I think I really liked that the system we used before, where we have like all the meshes and everything else inside of some like asset struct, and then that gets passed in update. So that way those are completely separate from what we have here. So like we wouldn't even store a mesh. In fact, I'm not even sure like what we need to store here. Like this could just be an empty, a zero size struct. I think I like that. Then I could implement default for this. I don't even need to implement this. I could just I don't know if I can derive. I don't need to do any of this stuff. We could just say, okay, we have a player draw system, and we need to impl draw system for player draw system. And there's nothing we need to worry about that right now. But that allows us to create this, and then when we add a draw in, it's going to require us to okay, then that will draw out. So if we want to draw and actually have a mesh, we're gonna have to have, I guess, like the meshes, the drawables. So maybe that's what would work out best. Is another. So we call them images in my other one. I don't think that that's necessarily the best idea. Probably want this to be like just all the drawables. .rs. Okay, so we do a pub struct drawables. And then in here, we can do something like the player. And then I can switch this out for an image later, and it won't matter. The draw system can take care of the image size, and it can care about that. But all the mesh stuff, it's like the player mesh, can go in here. So we have the player. We're going to be a mesh to begin with. We know we can't implement default for this. So this is going to be implement drawables. context. I don't think I need anything else right now. We're just gonna just build this. All right, so let player equals, so this is, we're gonna do our mesh builder. New, so this is pretty simple to do. I don't really worry about like having to recode this each time. Okay, so dot circle mode fill 0.2. So x is 0.0, y is 0.0. Our radius is, we can just do 10.0 for right now, but that can be easily changed. Tolerance is 0.1, and we're going to do that color new, and 0. Like 4, 6, 9, 0. Dot build, hand it that context. Okay, so now we have our player. Then we're going to return okay, self, player. Okay, so then we can come back out of this to our draw system. We know we're going to extract that sort of player out of here. We don't really care about this. So we're going to have a draw. So let's like write that and what that looks like. And then I'll be able to update the trait object for, to match what this is. So we're going to have a function draw. Self. Okay, so we need all the drawables. We know that. So we need drawables, and you can just be a reference to drawables. We know we need a context. And we need our location of where we are. So we need a location. If I do something like this, having it be a rect is really nice, because in that single data structure for the rect, I get the width, the height, the x, and the y. So if I do something like, you're just a reference to a rect. Then we're going to return a game result. And we're going to do, okay, so draw, and it in the context, and a reference to the drawables dot you don't see that because you need to be public. Okay, and a reference to the player, and then we're going to have our drop param. We can have our default, and then we're going to have a destination. And then that's where we have to create our our sort of like location, which is going to be based on this. So, okay, so our destination is going to be location dot x location dot y. I don't have to do any extra math here yet. And then we're going to return this, which is just the game result. So you're yelling at me because obviously this isn't implemented inside of this trait, but we can change that really quickly. All right, so we need to import drawables, import context, import a rect, import a game result. Okay. Then, okay, so no errors. So we need to create our draw system for the player and add that into the entity, which will then add that here. So we can add another test. So this is no longer going to be able to be a CI test. This is going to have to be just a test. Add player draw system. So that mutes entity equals entity default. Okay, so we create that. Our draw system should be none. Should be a none. We need to implement debug. Which means draw system needs to implement debug. Oh, right. And this is going to be the fun thing where we do the wheres for this trait also. So like the player draw system, you need to implement drive debug. And let's see, you are yelling at me. You're yelling at me. The trait needs to implement debug. So it's here where I think it's like aware. Oh, self debug. I forgot how to implement that. How to implement the derive like self debug. It's something very similar to this. But I'm just slightly off. I think we can basically it's aware on a trait. Where did we do this before? Did we do this in Jungle Game? I don't remember. Do we do it? Is it in one of our... Oh, we can turn on... Isn't dark mode a thing now? I swear that dark mode is now a thing in GitHub. Oh, suddenly it's dark mode over here. Wonderful. Oh, I just need to reset. Cool. All right. We want to go to knowledge. Chantilly, hello. Oh, right. That's not in Brooks Builds. I have that just under here. Knowledge. It's in the wiki. All right, so I want in game dev. I don't know if it's in game dev or game design. One of those two. No, that's actually design stuff. In game dev. Okay, so we have like these game objects, which should probably be an entity. And this is maybe in Rust also. I want to edit you. I want to add in. Okay, so not libraries, not tools. This is gonna be like traits. And so adding derive to debug traits. All right, so the idea here is that we're going to have a pub traits, my trait. Then we're going to have like just our function. Do something. Self. Something like that. And then before this, we want to go find out where did I do the thing? Under Brooks builds, I think we did this. Did we do it in jungle? Oh, we did not do it in jungle. Okay, so we hadn't done it yet in there. So I don't think we can look in here. This is going to be in. Maybe get the streamer? Do we do it in there? Here it is. Okay, so I was really close. We have this where self standard format debug. So was it the incorrect debug? It was the wrong debug. Import standard format debug. And then you're happy. Okay. So close. All right, so if we come back to here again, so this was, then we do where, self is standard format debug, and then the rest is the same. All right, so now that implements debug for us here. Entity, you're upset. Okay, so we still can't do the equals, but I think we can just do a matches. So we can just do asserts. We can use matches that entity dot draw system is equal to a none. And then I want to add a draw system in. So we need to create that. So create a player draw system. So that's going to be a player draw system. What does that look? It's an empty struct right now. So just create a new player draw system. And then we're going to do entity dot set draw system, hand it the player draw system, and we probably want to do something like entity equals, so that it returns self. It's just like this other one, which is part of the builder pattern. And then I'm not exactly sure how we can assert equals with this one. I guess we could create 2 of these. And then if we do assert equal yeah, because I don't know if I can do like a like compare against boxes. This might just have to be it was none and now it's no longer none. I guess we can copy and assert that you no longer match. So we can basically not that. All right, so set draw system. You take in self and a new draw system, which is going to be a type of draw system. And we're going to turn self. Okay, so then here we're going to box it up and throw it in there. So we're going to say turn self dot draw system equals sum box new draw system and turn self. Okay, so it's going to have to be boxed up ahead of time. So you're going to have to be boxed at this point. And here it's just going to be some draw system. Draw system. Oh, you know what? Say box like that. Come on. Say box like this here. Then down here, entity. Okay, so then player draw system. We're going to box new. Create that at this point in time. Hand that in to here, and that creates our entity. That adds the draw system to the entity. So run you. You're happy. We could then head back over to our main library. So we have set location. We then want to then set the draw system. And this is, we have to create a new draw system for this. It's going to be a box new player draw system, just like that. Everything else should be good. We have that draw in there. Okay, So then we want to actually implement draw for this. So in the world, we have to implement world. We have to have a pub function draw. Self. We know we need a context. And I'm not sure we need anything else for drawing. Probably eventually we will, but let's not worry about that right this second. Game results. And then I want to loop through all of these entities and run draw on them, which means that each of the entities we need to implement draw here. So have a pub function draw. It's going to be a self context. We're going to return a game result. So we're going to if let some draw system self dot. So we don't want to take ownership of it. So it's going to be self dot draw system. That gives us our draw system here. We're going to then do a draw system dot draw. Oh, right. We need the drawables. We need the context, and we need the location. So these need to be passed into. So drawables. So drawables. We have the context, and we have a location here. This location is a reference to a rectangle, so we probably want to update this to be a type rect. And in our default, instead of a 0.2, it's now going to be a rect new. We can do 0.0, 0, 0, 0. We have a none draw system, and our location goes there. So you're happy again. Now down here is not going to be. This is going to be a rect x and y. We can actually do this as new 0, 0, 0, 0, and then set location, then expect, so we can probably just do that mute location equals this. We then assert equal that the entity location is this location. We set the location with x and y. Then we are going to assert that, okay, so we need to update u. So then our location.x is now going to be equal to 1.0. Location.y should be equal to 2.0. And location should now be equal to this location. So you should be happy there. And then the rest of that is actually surprisingly the same. In draw here, what are you? Okay, so if let some, if we have a draw system out, then we want to draw system.draw. We pass in the reference to the drawables, the mutable reference to the context, and the location, which is going to be a reference to self dot location. We have to question mark that, and go like that. Okay. So then that's entity. The world has to draw this. And that means we're going to have all those assets, those resources. So I'm thinking we're deriving default for this. I suppose when we draw, we can pass in here those drawables. I think that's all we're going to need here. So then we're going to have to loop through each of these entities. So we're going to do self dot entities dot getter dot try for each. Then we're going to get entity dot draw, pass in a context, pass it in those drawables, and that's it. It returns a game result. And then so does this. This returns the game result here too. Okay. Does this mean we can actually see it on screen? No. Okay. It compiles, but I don't see our circle on the screen. So let's map through this again. We create a default game state. And so in main, we're creating a default game state, which has a world in here. So that world is this. Oh, we're not drawing. That's our problem. We need to tell it to draw. But also we unfortunately don't have the drawables yet. So we need to create that too. Togglebit is raiding with a party of 51. Oh no. I mean, oh yes. Thank you so much, Togglebit. Hey, thank you for the raid. We're past the time that I normally end. Okay. I think first of all, Togglebit, thank you so much for the raid. How was your stream? For everyone else, welcome. We can fit in a game. We can fit in our Get the Streamer game. And let's see. Cargo run. Release. All right. So for those of you who come in, when we get raided, we play this game that we made on stream together. You're all gonna throw stuff at me. It's all part of the raid and the fun. Basically, you're gonna use things like hatch fire, hatch sword, hatch snake. Throw things at me, and I'm gonna try to avoid it while also checking out chat, sort of seeing how you are. So. And I had to take that one. Run away! Oh man, I had to take down to 1 life. Oh, too many things, but you all got me. And who was that? That was Togglebit with 21 points for that. Oh, you barely eked out the win over Chantilly. Thank you so much for playing. You think you won last time? Possibly. You've got like a lot of those points now. adding in. Toggle is a streamer killer. Absolutely, absolutely. All right, so let me introduce to you what I'm working on. I'm working on a. There's not really much to show right now. It's a game template engine. We just started, I think, last stream, and this is gonna. It's me going through the book, Game Programming Patterns, which I went through previously and implemented all the all the patterns individually on their own, and so now like I kind of put it together into a single game, and I want to put it together into a more complicated game. We tried making a Pitfall clone, and I just ended up grinding myself, like painting myself into a corner is how I feel. Do I have a link to the book? I do. As in this. It's free if you want, or you can purchase it. So if you come to this website, you can go to web and click on read now, and it's just all available here. The author is pretty amazing, has done several different talks online if you want to go sort of watch them. And I think it's great. So what I'm trying to do is create a player, and I remembered like already there's things that I was like, oh man, I didn't implement that like from memory, even though I had read the book and I kind of forgot about it. We created we're using GGEZ with Rust. We have a world here, and then in our world we have entities, which is just a vector of entities, and for each entity it has a location and a draw system. Tend off, eat foods, have a great stream. Thanks everyone. Absolutely. Thank you again so much, Togglebit, for the raid, and have a great day. All right, so what are we doing? I wanted to actually display our character to the stream, and that means that we have to update our main library game state to actually create the drawables and store them, because we're not actually doing that yet. And then we can then draw and pass those drawables in. Because if I try to draw this right now, it's going to yell at us saying that, okay, so it's self.world.draw, pass in the context, also pass it in these self.drawables, which you're going to have to be a reference to. And then we'll question mark you. So we don't have that. We need to create that here. So we're gonna have drawables. It's gonna be a drawables like that, which means we can no longer implement default for game state. Unfortunately, we're gonna have to implement game state directly. Gonna go back to what we had before. So function new. You have to take into context. And the main reason we have to take into context is, yes, we create a world, but we also need to let drawables equals drawables new, and pass in the context here for that. And then this also returns a result drawables game error, so we can question mark you. You're going to be a game result self. All right, so going to be okay. Self world drawables. You're happy here, and then in our main we have to just update you a little bit, so this becomes a new. We pass in a context, and I want to be able to question mark you, and we're returning the game result there, so we should be happy here. Oh, new must be public. Okay. Does this mean we now get a C? Foo or bar? That is the question. There we go. And here's our player. It's a beautiful player. It's the most perfect player. Um, so if I want to make our player fall through gravity, then that's going to be this update method. So we're going to come into world and we're going to associate gravity in here. So the world will be in charge of like what the gravity is. And we could set this elsewhere, but and we could also just have this as just an F32, and we'll hard code it for right now. Although we're deriving default for this, so maybe we should do sort of like a little bit of a mini builder pattern here. We do test, CI test, add gravity to the world. And that allows us to say, okay, let that world. I'm going to do this. Let mute world equals. I want you to be type world equals world default. So we're going to assert equal that world dot gravity is 0.0 to begin with. We need to allow us quickly float compare. Then I want to do world equals world dot set gravity, and then we're gonna hand in something like 5.0, some nice large number, and then I can assert equal that world dot gravity is now 5.0. I'm gonna do the builder pattern all up front up here. So pub function sets gravity, you take in a mute self of ownership and the new gravity, which is an F32, and we're going to turn self. So we're going to say self dot gravity turn self. You should now pass test-wise. Okay, perfect. Then we can come into our main library. When we create our world, we're actually going to do this as world default dot set gravity, and we'll just set this to be 1.0 for right now. Then for our entities, it's going to be a little bit interesting because we don't necessarily want everything to be affected by gravity. That's going to be. Now we could do something like this. We could have in entity have like a flag for affected by gravity. And if that's true, in update we have you affected by gravity, and that just updates your location. It would probably make sense to have like a physics system for this, very similar to what we have for the draw system. So we have like a physics system which would allow us to then say, okay, entity, you then now in the update, we can tell the physics system that you are now like apply gravity to it. That could be interesting. We could do something like in here have affected by gravity. This can be a Boolean. By default, so affected by gravity is going to be false. And we store that away. Then we'd still want to have a physics system here. Which would look like an option box dyn physics system. Something like this. And then in this physics system, I'm not gonna like finish moving this because I run out of time. I have a meeting in like 10 minutes. So let's see. In here, okay, we're gonna want a hub function update. Gonna take mute self. I don't think we're gonna need a context. We're not gonna need the drawables. For right now, all we're gonna do is just tell the physics system. So it's gonna be two things, right? If we're affected by gravity. So if we have a drust. So right now we don't need to take anything in. We're not gonna return anything. We're gonna say if let some physics system equals self dot physics system. So that gives us this. Now, of course, it's going to yell at us because we have not actually created a physics system. We don't even have the trait, so it doesn't even know what that means. Then, if self dot affected by gravity. So if we're affected by gravity, then I want to say physics system dot apply force gravity. Okay, so then that means up here we need to take in gravity, which is an F32. Now, if we apply force gravity, that's like a force, which would probably be a F, like a point, like a 0.2. So you need to be a gravity force, which is actually going to be a point. So this shouldn't care about that, or like it's affected by gravity. You could be maybe a F32, but apply force, you're going to be a point. I don't want to have to create this all the time. So let's actually do this here. So you're going to be at 0.2 F32. Gravity. That means that in the world here, we can't store gravity as an F32. It's going to have to be stored as a mint 0.2 of F32. So set gravity. This might be here like that, but really self.gravity dot y equals gravity. That's what we care about. All right. I think that will work. Now, I have less than 10 minutes left, so I need to really quickly set all this stuff up. So let's go back into here. Let's commit all of our changes. We're work in progress. Having player fall down due to gravity. Gonna push that on up. If you want to take a look at this code, I have it all under Bang repo, so you can look at that there. And since there's 21 of us, let's see if there's any. Is there anybody to raid? Let's forward on that raid that we got from BeginBot is raiding. That's who I see on my list. BeginBot. OBS and WebSockets. We rated him yesterday or the day before, I think. But we can do that again. Turn off the music. And that's stream info. Raid channel. We'll do a BeginBot raid again. All right, everybody. I'm going to switch over to